punctual like the Deutsche Bahn, German train system. Probably you heard that term, and when you're in the English-speaking world, you might still have the impression that the German public transport system is inherently punctual. Good morning here is a wake-up call. Probably in whatever you country are, and I include the UK here, probably your public transport system is in a better shape than the German one, and probably it's more punctual as well. Might be shocking, especially to American and British listeners here. The consequences of bad leadership. This is the topic we have today. And at the moment, the case study of Deutsche Bahn might be the German train system, the German train company. The case study of Deutsche Bahn might be a case study that lasts for decades because it shows very well what happens when management makes the wrong decisions and decades later you face the consequences. We at the moment have constant delays. Trains are cancelled left, right, and center. Customers are frustrated. And the so-called change in mobility that the government looks for, which of course is important for climate change, etc., is not really happening because people say, well, I'd like to travel by train. And by the way, I travel 8,000 to 12,000 kilometers, so an average 10,000 kilometers, that's roughly 7,000 miles per month on the rail. So I'm a very senior, very experienced train traveler. However, it reaches a certain limit, which is why I do this podcast. And due to the emails I received as well, if we could talk about this case study and how management at Deutsche Bahn handled it. So let's look at what happened in the past. And saving money, by the way, is never a bad thing. However, there's a difference between saving and ruining a company. Back in the days, and by the way, it's totally normal when your company grows organically, which means that it grows and grows because business is running well. You will have something inefficient in your organization due to that, because something just happened, something just pops up. You think it's a good idea, you put it in the organization. It might even have a justification back then, and then afterwards it just stays because no one ever touched it. So when you look at it, there might be inefficiencies where you say, we need to get rid of this and that, and that's perfectly fine. However, getting rid of certain aspects of your organization means that you need to look into science, proof, evidence, and data. What is it that we need? What is the service level we need? What can we do to meet that service level? And then we can take away anything that we do not need to reach that service level. And by the way, this analysis of the actual need, the need analysis, can only be done by competent people who are experts on the subject matter, because you always need to include for example, business impact analysis when you do it wrong. How do you implement countermeasures, et cetera, and these steps from these experts have to be implemented afterwards. What is not helpful is to call some big name consultancy company where people with no expertise in logistics suddenly just make something up, charge €1 million or whatever else sum of money, give you recommendations, you just put it in place. And these consultancy companies know very well that they will not be held accountable for the consequences. And by the way, unfortunately, neither will the management be held accountable. The focus also has to be on your decision. What do you want to do as a service provider? When you have a train system, what do you want to do? Best service or best profit? It's not possible to have both. Impossible. When you have the best service, great, profit will be lower. When you have the best profit, it means that certain areas will be cut off because not enough people live there, not enough people get on or off the train, etc. So you have to decide, what is your goal, best service or best profit? You can't have both. And now we look into management at the Deutsche Bahn. If you have a certain level in logistics, or let's say in the transport system as a secretary, you suddenly end up as a senior manager at Deutsche Bahn for no particular reason. I know that free enterprise sometimes isn't better with this. However, it doesn't make any sense to put people with no subject matter expertise into seats where they don't know what to do. Also, you need an in-depth understanding of the system of the Deutsche Bahn, which formerly was run by the state. I mean, it's now privatized, but the state holds 100% of all shares. So it's basically still a state-run company, although on paper it is privatized. You need to understand there are people who are still public servants working for Deutsche Bahn. You have people who are hired, employed. You have people who are temp workers. You have people who are external people who are only there on very limited, very temporary, very low paid contracts. And all of these need to be addressed. And nothing of that can be seen. And I quote Ronald Heifetz here, who works for Harvard University and does science there, senior lecturer at Harvard University. He distinguishes between adaptive and technical leadership. Technical leadership means you do something step by step and then you announce it and then it's done. For example, when you work in a restaurant and you are the leader making shift plans, who has to work which hours, that's technical leadership. You announce it, people do it, we're all fine. Adaptive leadership means you have to stick to motivations, to people, the inner mission, transactional or transformational leadership, situative approach. What is their motivation? How do you motivate them? How do you speak to different audiences? How do you address their issues? How do you keep them going within the system and the change we have right now? And what I see at Deutsche Bahn is a massive misunderstanding of adaptive and technical leadership. They try to solve issues by technical leadership, by just announcing what has to be done, while adaptive leadership is the solution. And on top of that, you have completely unreasonable bonuses. And I am someone who always defends management bonuses as long as the performance is at least okay, preferably good. But when I, for example, now see that the CEO of Deutsche Bahn, Mr. Lutz, has basically $1 million basic income, got paid 2.2 million for no reason, including a 1.2 million euro bonus, where no one knows why, while the German train system is inherently late. Germany is known worldwide for being on time. It's a bit of a stereotype. However, it is not far away from the truth. It is a cultural aspect of German culture to be on time. And the Deutsche Bahn, who was one of the frontier companies to say, we are on time no matter what happens, now is one of the last companies you would think of when someone says, what company does their job well and on time? And by the way, when you get 45 billion, and I repeat, 45 billion euros of state subsidies, although on paper you're a privatized company, so how does that work? And no one complains once more. If you receive these subsidies, there is no chance for these management payments. There is no chance for these management bonuses. And there's especially no understanding and no acceptance for this kind of management behavior. And that needs to change immediately, including a third aspect now. After talking about saving versus ruining and the management, we now have to decide on communication. If you give up, and that's the first rule, if you give up, you lose. I just give you an idea. When I'm standing in Berlin and I'm asking someone who works for the Deutsche Bahn, when does my train come? Because once more train is canceled, they say, look on the app, that's how it goes, mate. That's a bit of the Berlin charm. I accept that. I just about accept that. However, when I constantly am confronted with people who work for the Deutsche Bahn, who give me the answer, well, we stand here for 30 minutes or maybe for 2 hours. We don't know because no one talks to us either. We don't know anything more than you see in your app. We look into the exactly same app. Then I have to say management failed on every single level, strategical, tactical, operational level. Because as soon as, and by the way, there are exceptions. When you as an employee for no reason gave up, because probably your line is on time, but you just are not in the mood to help people. If you gave up as an employee for no reason, please leave. If you as a manager at Deutsche Bahn think that just administrating the miserable situation which you are, if you think this is your job, please leave. However, many people are still engaged and they are very motivated to work for Deutsche Bahn. They are very loyal to the company, but the management doesn't allow them to practice what they want to do. If you do something wrong, and that applies to any level, including management, there has to be an open, clear, unambiguous, and solution-oriented communication. Because when I buy a ticket with you, I'm not buying a ticket to say, I arrive in Berlin someday or sometime or whenever. When I buy a ticket from, let's say, Duisburg to Berlin, and I should arrive 8:15 p.m. in Berlin, that's what I paid for. And there always there can be something wrong. There is no question about that. Technical stuff can fail. However, then it's your task to have immediate countermeasures ready. And if it is that you just simply hire taxis and drive us all to Berlin, I do not care. I pay for an 8:15 arrival, and you have to bring me and get me there within a reasonable amount of time around that, which for me ends with a 15-minute time frame. If you don't do that, however, then you have a damage. And of course, first you have a damage to the mobility change. People will not go by train. They will keep buying cars and go by cars. They will be relying on fuel, not electricity, because they don't trust the technology at the moment, which I cannot understand. However, people just are very reluctant to change. If they had a fuel-based car for decades, they probably do not change easily. However, when you just accept that this damage is there, you damage society, because we have climate change. There is the loss of social consens, because people will not have a social consensus on failing management being paid well. And there is a close to irreparable damage to society when you keep going like that, because people say, look at this. Privatized, then the state holds all the shares. So it's privatized, but basically state-run, and my taxpayers' money goes into an inefficient system that does not deliver on the promise, that is not fit for use, not fit for purpose. And at the end, they all get paid royally as long as you are in the top 3 tiers of management. And that is why some people simply deny to go by train. There have been weeks where I had usually I have about 5 hours of delay per week. We can calculate how much time I spend on delays per year. 5, 10, 15, 20 hours was the record of delays in 1 week. And I'm reaching the end of my tether. I'm really up for doing everything to save this planet. And going by train from Zurich to London takes time. And I'm happy to do that because I can work on the train. It's all good. However, when you do not deliver on the promise, I cannot ruin my business, my life, and my income based on your incompetence to deliver on the subject matter that you promised us. That is your service excellence. And we are sick of the marketing you are doing. The aspects we pointed out here, saving word is ruining, then the focus of what you want to do, best service, best profit. The management and the communication can be fixed, and it's your task to do that right now. Because some people ask me, why are you still on the train? Why didn't you go back to flying? And I can tell you why. Of course, saving this planet is important. And that's, of course, the number one reason. But one other main reason is there, and that's the price. Train is simply cheaper to go when you book in advance and you can plan well. And I am still born and bred Northern German, so I'm quite good with planning. However, you now have to see, do you want to have people on board who only stick with you due to the price? Probably not. So you better act right now with the steps that we discussed. Very important now, if you now have some questions where you say, well, we have similar issues in my company, then just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and then we take it from there. If you want to talk about training, speaking, coaching for your leaders management, happy to do that as well. Just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. We can just talk about your issues, your questions, your aspect. Doesn't cost you a penny, and we take it from there. Second aspect that I always recommend is register for the leadership letter, expert.nb-networks.com. It's a weekly leadership letter where you have 100% content. There's an ad-free guarantee. It's just content, and you get only there, you get free access to everything I publish every week. And the third step, and that's the most important one, apply what you heard here, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change that you want to see in your organization. I wish you all the best doing that. Always happy to help. Just drop me a line and we take it from there. And now I hope you had a very happy Easter time. Wishing you a great week. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.